Okay, let's do something here with Cam Newton and this whole situation. And I thought I listed 4 teams / a player who could be the biggest loser in this entire Cam situation if it goes well. Like, if Cam goes to New England and New England is good and Cam is good, there is going to be some collateral damage. Some people are going to look bad. So I ranked them. 3 teams and a player. And not the player wouldn't necessarily look bad, but there's some people with some stuff on the line here. Now, this, at number 4, potential loser in the Cam Newton situation, might be a little bit of a stretch. They did just draft Tua Tagovailoa, but Miami Dolphins, talk about a team that just has no buzz. No team gets more credit for going 4-12 in league history than Miami. Tua's got this hip. He might not be able to play this year. We've watched Ryan Fitzpatrick play for a decade. I get it, his Wonderlic scores high, and he's got a long beard. But if you told me that Cam Newton was starting for the Miami Dolphins, the SEC country, he'd just be a big deal down there in the South. It would just add some juice as a quote-unquote bridge for Tua, but just a reason that you'd have to watch the Dolphins. Like, if Tua is not starting, and I don't think at this point we know, I'm just not watching Ryan Fitzpatrick play football. Not doing it. Especially because, like I said, they went 4-12. We act like they won 10 games and Brian Flores, the next Belichick, 4-12. So I think Miami, if you could have signed him for really cheap, get rid of Fitzpatrick, have Cam, have Tua, little Auburn, Alabama, connection. Now, if Tua starts, this is a non-starter, and this team shouldn't have been in here. Number 3, Tampa had to do what they did. They got rid of Jameis for Tom Brady. Easiest decision ever. Tom Brady did not have to leave Belichick. Now, we all understand that everything has a shelf life, except hopefully like perfect marriages. But most companies don't stay on top forever. Most players, get old. Even coaches lose their juice. Hell, Andy Reid was fired in Philadelphia. Like Belichick was fired once upon a time. We're going to see how long Belichick now can last without Tom. So I get it. Like, people have to go their separate ways. But there is a chance that this Tampa thing does not work out that well for Tom. Now, in theory, I think it should. They got wide receivers. They got a sweet offensive coach. They got Todd Bowles. The defense should be a lot better. But there's still a lot of unknowns. Because of Corona, there was no practice. Now, Tom practiced, but I'm talking Arians and Tom that we know about that have been installing this offense. Bruce Arians has run a lot different offense than Tom has run this last decade. One throws bombs, the other guy kind of checks it down and picks you apart. They're just offensive philosophy is a little different at this point in time. So just to think they could mesh, pretty big question. I know that Josh, Bill, and Tom are on the same page. At least try to be. So just if this does not go well for Tom and Tampa, and I'm included, just chalking it up as a playoff team, who knows? If this was going to be a year that it was going to look weird, this would be the year. And if Belichick's in the playoffs with Cam Newton and Tom Brady is not in the playoffs with Tampa Bay, we talk about, listen, whether it's fair or not, we're going to judge these 2 individuals this season. Belichick and Brady. Who's winning? Who's losing? Who's kicking ass? Who's struggling? It's going to be a talking point on this show, with your friends, everywhere. It's just coming up. Because you could beat someone that barely knows anything about the NFL. They know Belichick and they know Tom. So those 2 people are interlocked for life, even though they've now separated. And they're going to be judged separate. So Tom, the success New England has with Cam, or hell, if Stidham, who knows? I mean, Cam's not even a lock. But definitely if this thing goes well with Cam, and they're able to make N'Keal Harry look good and Sony Michel, and Tom can't make these guys look good, which is possible. We just writing in stone he's going to be a star. You never know. Tom, could be a loser in this whole situation. Number 2, I want to call them the San Diego Chargers, but they go by the Los Angeles Chargers. It's pretty simple in my view. Cam Newton's a better player than Tyrod Taylor. Now, Anthony Lynn, the Chargers brass, tells me nonstop, Tyrod Taylor, Tyrod Taylor, Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor's fine. He's had a couple years where he started on that Bills playoff team. He's an athletic guy. I remember when I first got into scouting, watching him when he was on the Ravens. I think he was like a 4th or 5th round pick. I was like, I really liked him. I remember giving him a good grade. He went on to win the backup job, and he's had a long career. He has exceeded expectations. But in my mind, he's a really good backup, not a starting quarterback. Now, he's not a lock to be a starter. They don't know how Justin Herbert's going to look. But here's what you could have done. You could have signed Cam for really cheap, got rid of Tyrod, and had Justin Herbert. And there's a business element with the Chargers. They're irrelevant in L.A. They're kind of irrelevant in the NFL, but definitely in L.A. They don't sell any tickets. No one talks about them in the town. I've lived in California my whole life. At least with the Chargers, when they had a home San Diego, it resonated with those people. Where I went to school at Cal Poly, a lot of people from San Diego went. They had a passionate fan base. You can say there weren't that many of them. I don't know. Well, they're definitely not going to L.A. We've seen the last 3 years in the little Home Depot Center, no one shows up. Cam moves the needle. Cam would have been a big deal. Cam's good enough to play for the Patriots. He's not good enough to play for you. Now, I get it. If Justin Herbert's starting week 1, it won't matter, and this conversation should never have happened. But if Justin Herbert redshirts this year and they play with Tyrod Taylor, or maybe they go through, potentially, I don't know, a rough start, like 3-5 with Tyrod Taylor as their quarterback, and Cam's having success in New England, like, what were the Chargers doing? They got an elite defense. They got sweet players everywhere on offense. They just need a quarterback. And there's pressure on them, whoever their quarterback is, but especially if it's Tyrod Taylor, he's got to play well if Cam Newton's playing well for the New England Patriots. And then number 1, I don't understand for the life of me. I mean, I get it. You want to hit restart and reset whenever you come in, culture, all that, BS. But here's the reality. Cam Newton was on a year-to-year contract. If it didn't go well, you get rid of him. And I've seen examples when Jim Harbaugh showed up to the 49ers, he didn't tell Alex Smith, kick rocks, I'll bring in my own guy. He kept him. And it turns out he won with him. Now, ultimately, he replaced him. Chip Kelly showed up after Andy got fired in Philly. Did he tell Michael Vick to leave? No. Michael Vick was a starting quarterback. Now, he got injured and stuff happened, but he gave it a try. What was the rush for Matt Rule to get rid of Cam Newton? Now, I'd get it if you went, well, John, they traded for Deshaun Watson. They drafted Kyler Murray. They made some miraculous trade for Russell Wilson. I'd be like, yeah, I would have cut Cam too. No, who'd they sign? Teddy Bridgewater. Come on, guys. I like Teddy. Solid backup. I mean, he's going to be a starting quarterback. You gave $33 million to Teddy Bridgewater. I would take my chances with a year Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton if I was them. And the way they handled it, they like, thanks for the great career on Twitter. It's like, guys, you haven't cut him yet. I get Tepper and Matt Rule wanted to move on desperately, but it could come back and bite him in the ass. Their team's not going to be that good this year. Teddy Bridgewater benefited a lot last year from playing on the Saints, a loaded offense, one of the brightest offensive minds we've ever seen in Sean Payton. I like Joe Brady. I'm impressed with his story. Went from grunt to $1 million man overnight. But to think that he's just going to take the NFL by storm with Teddy Bridgewater is pretty crazy to me. Now, I get they've worked together and they have a connection from when he was in with the Saints, but man, I would have taken my chances. Just Cam Newton's on a year-to-year contract. If he's bad, you just move on next year and you cut him. What was the rush to get rid of him? Now, if they had information he's shot, and maybe he is, but he's moving around pretty well in these Instagram videos. I don't know. There is pressure on Carolina, who's not going to be any good, that there's a chance that Teddy Bridgewater does not look anything like he looked last year with the Saints, and Cam Newton's looking good, and you go, well, you could have just had Cam Newton. You had Cam Newton the whole time. Why'd you get rid of him? Why were you so quick to push him out the door? And I think Carolina, when the dust settles, could look really bad. What's up, everybody? My name is John Middlekauff, and I host a show for Colin Cowherd called 3 and Out on his podcast network. You can subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. I worked in the NFL as a scout for Andy Reid and Howie Roseman, and I've been talking about football for the last 7 years. If you like your football talk, raw and unfiltered, no BS, I'm your guy. Subscribe to 3 and Out right now.